The crystal chandelier sparkled above the dining table at Cirque as my brother Nathan delivered his usual dose of condescension. Still running that tiny antique shop, Emma? How quaint. I smoothed down my vintage Chanel dress, worth more than Nathan's entire wardrobe, though he'd never recognize true value if it didn't come with a current season price tag, and maintain my composure. If only they knew that while they mocked my dusty little store, I had built Kingsley Investments into one of the most powerful private collection firms in the world. Yes, Nathan. The shop's doing fine. Fine. He smirked, adjusting his flashy new Rolex. I just closed a $100 million deal for Morgan Stanley. But hey, maybe you sold a nice lamp this week. If he only knew that the nice lamps in my shop were just a cover for my real business. Acquiring and controlling priceless artifacts and historical properties that gave me leverage over the world's most powerful corporations. Actually, I said quietly, I did sell a rather interesting piece yesterday. Oh, our mother feigned interest. Another vintage teacup set? I thought about the 16th century manuscript I'd actually acquired, the one containing the original deed to the building Nathan's big deal hinged on. The document that would be revealed tomorrow when he discovered who really owned his client's property. My phone buzzed. A message from my legal team. Deed verification complete. Ready for tomorrow's revelation. Speaking of business, Nathan continued, my client is finalizing the purchase of the Victoria building tomorrow. Biggest real estate deal of the year. I bit back a smile, thinking of the documents waiting in my real office. The penthouse of the very building he thought his client was buying. The mysterious collector they'd been trying to reach for months was sitting right across their dinner table. That's wonderful, I replied just as another message lit up my phone. All paperwork prepared for tomorrow's meeting. Kingsley Investments ownership confirmation ready. Emma dear, our father chimed in, perhaps it's time to consider a real career. Nathan could probably find you something entry-level at his firm. I thought about my actual net worth, billions in rare artifacts, historical properties and strategic investments. While they saw a small-time antique dealer, I controlled a web of historical treasures that gave me power over countless corporate empires. That's thoughtful, I said, watching Nathan preen at our father's praise. But I enjoy my shop. Enjoy. Nathan scoffed. Emma, you're 35, playing with old furniture while I'm making real moves in the business world. The Victoria building deal alone will transform downtown. Transform it right into my portfolio, I thought, remembering how I'd quietly acquired the building's original deed through a complex series of historical art trades. You know, our mother added, Mrs. Henderson's daughter just opened a lovely little gift shop. Maybe you two could combine your quaint little businesses. I checked my phone again as another update arrived. Client list confirmed for tomorrow's meeting. Morgan Stanley executives arriving at 9 a.m. The family dinner continued its usual pattern. Nathan broadcasting his successes, our parents lamenting my choices, everyone taking turns suggesting real careers I should consider. At least tell me you've started saving for retirement, Nathan said with fake concern. I know antiques aren't exactly profitable. If he only knew about the vault beneath my tiny shop, filled with artifacts worth more than his entire firm's annual revenue. The antique store they mocked was just the public face of an empire built on historical power. I manage, I replied softly, thinking of tomorrow's meeting when they'd learn that the sister they'd dismissed as a failure actually owned the building they were desperately trying to buy. After all, some businesses are built on flash and noise, but others are built on centuries of quiet power. At precisely 9 a.m. the next morning, I sat in the penthouse office of the Victoria building, watching through the security feed as Nathan arrived with his Morgan Stanley team. They had no idea that the mysterious collector they were meeting was the sister they'd mocked over dinner just hours ago. The owner is quite private, Nathan was telling his clients as they rode the elevator. But I'm sure we can persuade them to sell. The offer is extremely generous. If he only knew that the generous offer was barely a fraction of what I'd invested in my collection of historical properties. My assistant entered with an update. Your brother's team has prepared quite a presentation. They seem very confident. Of course they are, I smiled, adjusting my perfectly tailored Armani suit, a far cry from the vintage shop owner look they were accustomed to. They have no idea who they're dealing with. The conference room door opened and Nathan strode in with his usual arrogance, then stopped short at the sight of me behind the massive desk. "Emma?" He blinked in confusion. "What are you? This is a private meeting. We're expecting the owner of Kingsley Investments," I finished for him, enjoying the color draining from his face. "That would be me." The Morgan Stanley executives exchanged confused looks as Nathan struggled to comprehend what was happening. "This is impossible," he finally managed. "You run an antique shop." Actually, I pressed a button, and the room's screens lit up with Kingsley Investments' portfolio. Billions in historical properties, rare artifacts, and strategic holdings. The antique shop is just a small part of what I do. I opened an ornate leather folder, removing the original Victoria building deed. "I believe you're here to discuss purchasing this property?" "That document." One of the executives leaned forward. "Is that the original deed?" "From 1847, I confirmed. Along with all subsequent historical transfers. I acquired it last year through a rather complex exchange involving a collection of Renaissance manuscripts." Nathan collapsed into a chair, his expensive suit suddenly looking cheap against the authentic 18th century furniture in my office. "Why didn't you tell us?" he whispered. "Tell you what?" I raised an eyebrow. "That while you were mocking my dusty little store, I was building one of the largest private collection firms in the world. That every nice lamp I sold was cover for acquiring another piece of history that gives me control over properties like this." I distributed copies of my counteroffer to the Morgan Stanley team. "As you can see, my terms are quite different from what you expected. These numbers." The lead executive studied the documents. "This would more than double our projected investment. The Victoria building isn't just property," I explained. "It's history. And history, as I've learned, is priceless." Nathan was frantically flipping through the papers, watching his biggest deal of the year transform into something far beyond his control. "You'll need my signature as the legal owner," I continued, enjoying his discomfort. "Not just of the building but of several other properties your firm has been trying to acquire. After all, some signatures carry the weight of centuries behind them." The aftermath of the Victoria building revelation sent shockwaves through both the corporate world and my family. Headlines read, "Hidden History, the antique dealer who controls billions in real estate," and "Kingsley Investments emerges as power player in historical properties." My phone was flooded with messages from family members who suddenly discovered a deep appreciation for antiques. "Nathan, we need to talk about potential collaborations." "Mom, darling, why didn't you tell us about your real business?" "Dad, princess, let's discuss some investment opportunities." I archived them all, focusing instead on my next acquisition. A collection of 17th century documents that would give me control over 3 more downtown properties Nathan's firm had been eyeing. 1 month later, I sat in my true office, a carefully restored Victorian library above my tiny shop, reviewing the changes in my family's attitude. Nathan had been demoted after the Victoria building deal fell through. Our parents had stopped hosting their bragging dinners about their son's success. "Your mother's here to see you," my assistant announced. "She's browsing the shop downstairs." I watched on the security feed as she wandered through my antique store, actually looking at the pieces now, probably trying to figure out which ones were worth millions. "Tell her the owner is busy with an important acquisition," I replied, signing documents for my latest purchase, a medieval charter that would give me control over Nathan's firm's headquarters building. When I finally agreed to a family dinner 2 months later, it was in my private dining room, surrounded by artifacts worth more than their combined lifetime earnings. "This is extraordinary," my mother managed, staring at a seemingly simple vase. "Is that a Ming Dynasty imperial piece?" "Yes." I smiled. "Worth more than Nathan's annual bonus." I acquired it the week he suggested I sell costume jewelry instead of antiques. Nathan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "About that, I never understood what you were building." "No," I agreed. "You were too busy counting your commission checks to notice that every dusty piece in my shop was part of a larger strategy." I pressed a button and hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing displays of historical documents and artifacts. "That nice lamp I sold last week?" The buyer was the CEO of Goldman Sachs. He needed my signature on some historical property rights his firm requires. Why keep it secret? My father asked. We could have helped. Helped? I laughed softly. Like when you suggested I get a real job? Or when Nathan offered me an entry-level position filing papers. I stood, walking to a massive safe hidden behind an antique bookcase. This single vault contains documents worth more than Morgan Stanley's entire real estate portfolio. Every piece tells a story, carries power, and was acquired while you thought I was playing shop. Over the following months, my family watched as Kingsley Investments emerged as a major force in the corporate world. Nathan's firm repeatedly discovered that properties they wanted were somehow linked to my historical collections. Our parents' social circle buzzed with stories about their daughter, not the son, who had built an empire. Your brother's here again, my assistant reported one morning. He's brought another business proposal. I glanced at the security feed showing Nathan in my shop, nervously fingering his now-pawned Rolex. Tell him all business inquiries must go through proper channels. Perhaps he'd like to fill out an entry-level application. The tiny antique shop still stands, a reminder of where I started and what I built. Sometimes I work from the small desk in the corner watching people like Nathan pass by, never realizing that real power often hides in plain sight. After all, history teaches us that true empires aren't built on flashy deals and boastful dinners. They're built on carefully collected pieces of the past, each one a key to controlling the present. The next time Nathan's firm needs a signature on a major deal, they'll find my name on the documents. Not as a failed antique dealer, but as the collector who turned history into power. Because sometimes the most valuable antiques aren't the ones on display. They're the documents in the vault that control the fate of modern empires.